Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from 1952. This is Bend of the River. It stars Jimmy Stewart, Arthur Kennedy, directed by Anthony Mann. This is the second of the 5 Anthony Mann, Jimmy Stewart westerns of the 1950s. The first one was Winchester 73, in this great, fairly recent Criterion release, which I talked about when this film came out, or when this release came out. So this is Winchester 73 was filmed in glorious black and white. And the river is in glorious Technicolor. Let me tell you, this is glorious. This is a restoration from the original camera negative. For some reason, Kino didn't do a 4K UHD release, but on Blu-ray, it nevertheless looks really, really good. So this is a film, as so many westerns are, about wagon trains moving from the Midwest to the West Coast. This wagon train is headed for Portland, Oregon, and then they're going to move on from Portland to find a very fertile, some fertile land right by a river that they'll be able to create a new community, churches, schools. This is part of the mythology of the American dream, the pioneer spirit. These settlers are very much idealized in this journey, but their leader, the man who's guiding them to the West Coast, is McClintock, played by Jimmy Stewart. Now, he's not really part of the settlers, but he dreams of having a cattle ranch, and one day he looks a bit haunted, and one day the point is made clear as he is looking in the late afternoon. He's looking for the best trail for the following day, and he sees a man about to be hung for horse stealing. And Jimmy Stewart kind of caresses his cravat, and with a pained look on his face, he saves the man's life. And they go off back to the settlers' camp, and as they're talking, they realize that they know each other by reputation. They had both participated in a very, very bloody war, the Kansas-Missouri border wars, and they knew each other by reputation. They did not know each other personally. But quickly a friendship builds up. Now, and this is Arthur Kennedy. His character's named Cole. So McClintock is a character who is haunted by that past. He clearly wants to shed the past. He's searching, as in many Western movies, he's searching for a bit of redemption for his past life. Cole, played by Arthur Kennedy, he's just sort of riding on the wind. He goes wherever he thinks there may be opportunity. He said he was heading to California, but he quickly joins up with the settlers and see what might come of that. And he's full of charm, and we also wonder, you can see it almost in his eyes, the way Arthur Kennedy plays him, that there's another side to him. So we don't know, can we really trust him? And McClintock as well wonders how far he'll be able to trust Cole. But Cole, very soon after, will save McClintock's life. So they develop a bond. And this is and Arthur Kennedy was he got into movies in 1940. He'd been a stage actor. I think it was in the group theater, and continued on during his very busy film career, acting on stage. In fact, and I had forgotten this, he was in the original production of Death of a Salesman. He played Willie Loman, Lee J. Cobb's oldest son, and won a Tony Award for it. Jimmy Stewart as well was on Broadway for quite a while. I've read that it was as much as 2 years where he played Harvey. And he eventually made the movie version of Harvey. So this is a script by Borden Chase, and Borden Chase wrote almost all westerns. And so many Hollywood movies of the 40s and 50s were written by screenplays by Borden Chase, including Red River. He wrote the screenplay for Winchester 73. and two of the remaining five films. And those three films, what are they? The Man from Lair being a naked spur of the far country. So this is a typical board and chase type story, where we see a kind of duality. We see the protagonist haunted by some event in his past, and he's sort of paired against another figure that is sort of the other side of the coin of his own personality, and maybe an impediment for his quest for redemption. So they arrive in the wagon train arrives in Portland, and it's a very friendly city, friendly businessmen, and the leader of these settlers, played by J.C. Flippin, he places an order, and so when eventually they get to the location that they're going to make their permanent settlement at, they don't have enough supplies to get through winter, so these supplies would be transported to them before winter came, but then they don't come. So Stewart and J.C. Flippin, they go back to Portland with coal as well to see what's up. And well, gold has been discovered in Portland, is now a hellhole. The friendly businessman who's promised to bring them their goods, he's become the devil itself. It's just a total sea change in Portland as the gold has been discovered. So then the meat of the film is the adventure that ensues in getting those supplies back to the settlement, the new settlement. And there's all kinds of impediments along the way. There's a gold camp, and they're eager for their supplies as well. Cole has hired some ne'er-do-wells, the teamsters that could handle the wagons as they traverse some very tricky terrain. And these scenes are just filmed they're just amazing shots and sequences they got of the wagons going over these big rocks and on the trail, and there's an amazing scene where the wagons are going down a hillside, and it's covered with snow. And in fact, you can see one of the wagons are just about to pull over when the teamster is able to get it upright again. Treacherous river crossings, all in the setting. In the background, we see Mount Hood, and Mount Hood is a volcanic-shaped mountain, snow-capped mountain. It's always in the background here. So Anthony Mann, he was great at this kind of outdoor photography, or setting his story against the danger of the terrain in which his characters are traversing. He was known for this, famous for this, and his ability to bring the terrain into the emotional life of the characters. I think there was one French critic of the New Wave, and he said that the perfect director would have the interiors of Nicholas Ray and the exteriors of Anthony Mann. I don't know that Mann's interiors were all that bad, but certainly his exteriors are truly magnificent. And it's a very dangerous shoot. They go up to the timberline, and it looks like they actually go up above the timberline. And speaking of timberline, the Timberline Hotel was where was what they used to house the crew and cast. And the Timberline Hotel was the exteriors of the Timberline Hotel was used by Stanley Kubrick in The Shining. But it was a very colorful, adventurous, exciting journey that it becomes there's two commentaries here in this keynote release, and one of them says that back in Universal, this was the Universal International Picture, when the executives saw the dailies, they were jumping for joy. They knew they were going to have another hit. Winchester 73 had already been a big hit. And certainly and certainly Anthony Mann was the director for this. It's the movement of the horses, the cattle. And then there's action galore. There's betrayals and gunfights, and the second half of the movie is definitely not. You're not going to lose your attention watching Bend of the River. And there's some delightful character actors along the way. We get Rock Hudson. He's on the rise. He's not yet a star. He's got a small supporting role, but he certainly stands out, as does Julie Adams. I think she's billed as Julia Adams here. Just impossibly beautiful. She is J.C. Flippin's daughter. He has two daughters. Lori Nelson, I think plays the other daughter. And they're both, their hairdos are perfect. Their makeup is perfect. And Julie Adams in Technicolor, who cares? Let's look at Julie Adams in Technicolor. And the two actresses actually shared another piece of trivia, is that Julie Adams was the star of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and Lori Nelson was the star of the sequel. Then we had J.C. Flippin playing their father, the leader of these settlers, Francis Bavier. Very commanding, much more so than you would remember her from if you know her from the Andy Griffith Show. Harry Morgan is one of the Teamsters hired in Portland, but he's kind of shady. He could go either way. And of course, Harry Morgan was from Dragnet, and also probably more famously from MASH. I have to talk a little bit about Stepin Fetchit. This is one of Stepin Fetchit's last roles in the movies. He is sort of the standard bearer of the type of degrading role that black actors had to perform if they wanted to be in movies in the 1930s. Lincoln Evans, I think, is his real name. And he developed the Stepin Fetchit character in the 1920s on black comedy shows that traveled around the U.S. And they became very popular with audiences. The shuffle and the big eyes and the slow drawl. Here he's not playing Stepin Fetchit. He does talk, he does have some of the drawl, but he's given some dignity here. In fact, he's the aide to the steamboat captain, played by Curly Johnson. I don't know what this steamboat is doing in the Pacific, but they reminisce constantly about how much better life was when they were on the Mississippi. And even though Stepin Fetchit is the employee, it's very much stressed that they're the best of friends. So it's kind of good to see Stepin Fetchit get a role like this. Popular in the 30s and the 1940s, even most audiences were starting to see this was really an unacceptable and maybe even tired stereotype. So Stepin Fetchit, who would become a millionaire in the 1930s from all the film roles that he was in, he started to lose. He wasn't being offered film roles, and I don't think this wasn't his last appearance in films, but I think he had one or two more. And he was a very literate, educated man, a good friend of Will Rogers. He was in a bunch of Will Rogers movies in the 1930s. And later on, as the film roles dried up, he became good friends with Malcolm X, with Muhammad Ali. In fact, you can see him in one of the documentaries that are made on Muhammad Ali's life and at the height of his boxing career. So, again, this film was a big success. They go on, Mann and Stewart go on to make three more, and they made three non-Western movies as well. Ironically, their most commercially successful film was the Glenn Miller story, and by far. And the Glenn Miller story, of course, the movies I haven't seen in a long time. It might be a good movie, but it's pretty fair to say is forgotten. Whereas these westerns have a continued life, and Stewart was in the midst of this great decade of film roles, probably the best that any actor might have ever had. And these are not only these man westerns. He was in 3 Alfred Hitchcock movies in the 50s, Rear Window and The Man Who Knew Too Much, and of course Vertigo, culminating in 1959 in probably my favorite Jimmy Stewart performance in Otto Preminger's Anatomy of a Murder. Anthony Mann himself, they had a falling out on a movie called Night Passage. Anthony Mann didn't like the script. Jimmy Stewart was offended by some of the things Mann said about the project, and they never made another movie again. Anthony Mann would go on to make another Western that is often thought as one of the great Westerns, Man of the West, with Gary Cooper, Lee J. Cobb. And he made what is often thought as one of the great war films, Men in War, with Robert Ryan. And some Anthony Mann fans think that El Cid in 1961 is actually Anthony Mann's masterpiece. This was with Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. Unfortunately, this was made for Samuel Bronson, a big, epic film, expensive, with lots of extras, filmed in Spain. And it's not available. It's not available, at least in the U.S. It's not available for streaming. It's not available on physical release. I think most of these Samuel Bronson movies are not. So something must be up in there in the estate, the Samuel Bronson estate. The Fall of the Roman Empire, Anthony Mann also made with Bronson. And hopefully someday we'll get it. I found a copy of El Cid streaming on YouTube. Unfortunately, it was the Italian dubbed version. So again, I'm going to try to go on and cover the final 3 films of this Western series, because the Western was huge in the 1950s, and Stewart and Mann's Westerns in particular really stand out. Okay, thanks for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.